Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today I will talk about the research ethics. What is research ethics and what is the correlation between our research activities and research labs, research thesis, its significance, what are the different types of research, why we do research, इनका क्या रिलेशनशिप है रिसर्च एथिक्स के साथ, इनका क्या रिलेशनशिप है एथिकल एक्टिविटीज़ के साथ। हमने ये स्टडी किया कि हमने देखा कि व्हाट इज़ रिसर्च, इसकी सिग्निफिकेंस क्या है, डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ रिसर्च हमने देखी, व्हाई वी डू रिसर्च, हाउ स्टार्टेड इट, व्हेन टू डू रिसर्च, हाउ डज रिसर्च, वेयर टू कंडक्ट इट, which is the right research, right? Which is the right research, कौन सी ठीक रिसर्च है। तो अब हम बेसिकली और किस तरह, हाउ इन द यस इन द कमिंग लेक्चर यू विल सी कि किस तरह से हम अच्छी एक रिसर्च, हम एक फ्रूटफुल रिसर्च हम कर सकते हैं। यस, कैन वी से द राइट रिसर्च इज द वन which benefits the mankind as a whole, but as a flawed individuals, how can we decide what is right or wrong for that matter? क्या ठीक है क्या गलत है, लेकिन रिसर्च का मतलब यह है कि जो कि इंसानियत को फ़ायदा मुकम्मल तौर पे दे सके। We must have consensus on a standard just like the gold standard for wealth. But where would the standard come from? We can make one: humanitarianism, feminism, animal rights, etc. We can look into a ready-made standard like the religion, philosophy behind the ethics and principles of research. Ethics. Ethics क्या है? The discipline dealing with what is good and bad and with moral duty and obligation. या हम कह सकते हैं a set of moral principles, a theory or system of moral values, या हम कह सकते हैं the principles of conduct governing an individual or a group, or guiding philosophy or consciousness of moral importance or a set of moral issues or aspects. But what has ethics got to do with research? अब research और ethics जो है उसका क्या ताल्लुक है? Is pure research above ethics and morality? Is ethics and morality to do with technology and politics? The appliance of research, not research itself. The impact of research on values and values on research. Ethical considerations are to the fore with the development of new technologies and new social systems. Society inherently conservative and seeks to set the limits of research activity. What is the scope of research ethics? Ethical considerations cover all aspects of research, but they are foregrounded when the subject of the research are humans or animals. History of unethical research. Tuskegee experiment, group study, U.S. Department of Defense and Atomic Energy Commission, William Obedience Study, Zimbardo Stanford Prison Experiment, November Code, NIH Ethics Committee, which was established in 1964. इसके बाद फिर Declaration of Helsinki in 1964, 75, 83, 89, Future Ethics and Clinical Research, 1973, Congressional Hearings on Quality of Health Care and Human Experimentation, National Research Act in 1974, the Belmont Report, the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research in 1979, boundaries between practice and research that was established, basic ethical principles were laid down, applications of the principles. The Belmont Report in 1979 is the major ethical statement guiding human research in the United States. Research involving human subjects in the medical, social, and behavioral sciences possesses complex ethical issues. It requires careful thought and consideration on the part of both researchers and participants. Prospective participants must be given adequate information on both the possible risk and the potential benefit of their involvement to allow them to make informed decisions. Ethical issues, justification for the research, access to participant privacy, informed consent, potential harm. Ethical consideration, ethics रिसर्च के साथ मिलाने का क्या मकसद है? बेसिकली जो रिसर्च हम कर रहे हैं हम उसको जस्टिफाई कर सकें, और जो पार्टिसिपेंट बेसिकली जो कि प्राइवेसी में होते हैं, जिन्होंने इस रिसर्च में पार्टिसिपेट किया है, उन्होंने हिस्सा लिया है, उन्होंने उसमें अपनी राय दी है, उन्होंने अपना वक्त दिया है, उन्होंने अपनी जो एक्सपेरिमेंटल जो उनकी कोशिशें थी, जो उनका काम था, उसके बारे में इन्फॉर्म किया। उन्होंने वो नॉलेज दिया जो कि कॉन्फिडेंशियल नॉलेज था। इस तरह हम उन पार्टिसिपेंट से पूछते हैं कि आप ये इंफॉर्मेशन हमें प्रोवाइड करना चाहते हैं रिसर्च के लिए या नहीं, और पोटेंशियल हार्म कि कोई नुकसान खुदा ना खास्ता अगर उस इंडिविजुअल को, उस पार्टिसिपेंट को मिलता है, तो हम उसके बारे में उसे पहले से आगाह करते हैं, जो कि इससे पहले नहीं था। With research involving human subjects, the risk and cost must be balanced against the potential benefit. Trivial or repetitive research is maybe the unethical where the subjects are at risk. Autonomy. The ethical principle of autonomy means that each person should be given the respect, time, and opportunity necessary to make his or her own decision. Prospective participants must be given the information they will need to decide to enter a study or not to participate. Vulnerable participants. Potentially vulnerable participants such as children, the elderly, the mentally ill may be incapable of understanding information that would enable them to make an informed decision about study participation. Consequently, careful consideration of their situation and needs is required, and extra care must be taken to protect them. For example, how will you assess the diminished capacity of an elderly individual? Who will be the guardian, and how and when will you involve another individual as guardian in the process? The process of obtaining consent. Identify participant population, produce information sheet and consent document, obtain permission from school ethics committee, present research information to participant and discuss its contents, indicating that withdrawal at any time is possible. Answer participants' questions. Give a copy of the consent document. Allow the participant time to consider. Meet particular and discuss Meet participant and discuss documents to answer any more questions and assess participants' understanding. Obtain appropriate signed consent, start research. The participants. The participants may not have the experience or educational background in order to fully understand the implications of the research. They may be swayed because of their respect and of trust in the researcher who stand as an authority figure. If they are being paid for their participation, they may be swayed by economic consideration from a tree from a free judgment of the risk. Peer pressure. The participants may be subject to the social pressure of their peer group. This is particularly prevalent in research groups. Assessing participant understanding. An important part of the process is for the researcher to ensure that the prospective participant understands the research, their role in it, and any risk they may be taking. During discussion, the use of open-ended and non-directive questions, that is, those that begin with words such as what, where, how, often, when, and please describe is most effective at doing this. A few of the questions you may want to ask are describe in your own words the purpose of the study. What more would you like to know? Would you please explain to me what you think we are going to ask you to do? What are your concerns? The idea is not to quiz the participant but to encourage an open exchange of information and encourage them to ask questions. Contact information. Give the name of people who can answer questions about the research, include the principal investigator. If the researcher is a student, include the names and phone number of the principal investigator and where applicable, the chair of school ethical committee for question. एक school ethical committee एक college या university इंस्टीट्यूट या डिपार्टमेंट में रिसर्च हो रही है तो उसके बारे में एक एथिकल कमेटी का मौजूद होना ज़रूरी है जो कि इसको एनालाइज करे कि ये जो काम रिसर्च वर्क हो रहा है ये एथिकल वे में है या नहीं है जो कि रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन पॉलिसीज ऑलरेडी सेट है उनके मुताबिक हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा furnish the contact name of a neutral third party who can explain the rights of research participants if the participant has any question. Withdrawal. Always stress the fact that participation is voluntary and that the participant can withdraw at any time. State that refusing to participate will involve no penalty or decrease in benefit to which the participant is otherwise entitled. Emphasize that the individual may discontinue participation at any time without penalty or loss of benefits. If there are limitations or risks involved in withdrawal, such as a danger to the participant's well being, these must also be clearly explained. Ethical problems may arise. The requirements of ethical research sometimes conflict with the simple fulfillment of the obligation to obtain informed consent. For example, in psychological research, information and foreknowledge may bias the results. Reasons for limiting information. The most common reason for limiting information is that valid data could not be obtained if the participants were fully informed about the purposes and procedures of the research. Methodological requirement of the research may demand that the participants remain unaware of the specific hypothesis under investigation. In other situations, incomplete information or misinformation may have to be provided to elicit the behavior of a new individual or to create psychologically reality under conditions. Deception or concealment. Fully informed consent cannot be obtained in some kind of research without the possibility that the research may be biased. In those circumstances where a methodological requirement may necessitate the use of concealment or deception, the researcher has a special responsibility to determine whether the use of such techniques is justified to the study's prospective scientific education or applied value. Whether alternative procedures are available that don't use concealment or deception, that the participants are provided with sufficient explanation as soon as possible. Risk assessment. Research is by nature uncertain. The researcher may not be fully aware of the possible hazards involved in the post-research. For example, in the early stages of the development of new drug, their long-term effect may not be known. The perception of risk is central to informed consent, like the risk that is attached, perceived through investigation, for example, in science by experiment and observation, and perceived directly by the person's own senses or experiment, for example, such as driving a car. Virtue risk that is not known or cannot be known, or whether there are different opinions. Consent form might take the following form. I have read the information sheet and have had the details of the study explained to me. My questions have been answered to my satisfaction, and I may ask further questions at any time. I understand I have the right to withdraw from study at any time and decline to answer any particular question. I agree I agree to provide information to the researchers on the understanding that my name will not be used without my permission. I do not agree to the interview being recorded electronically. I understand that I have the right to ask for the tape to be turned off at any time during the interview. I agree to participate in this study under the conditions set out in the information sheet. Then signature, name and date. Research design. Most research is sponsored if, yes, it is ethical behavior for a researcher to use resources efficiently and effectively, to work hard to ensure the well-being of all colleagues and participants. Minimizing the risk, maximizing the potential for valuable results. It is standard practice in research to carry out a preliminary small-scale project in order to enable more effective assessment of risk, more efficient design of the main project. Matonian norms, communalism, universalism, disinterestedness, originality, scepticism. The ethical matrix that basically provide a means of examining the ethical position of all interest groups, ensuring quality of treatment. It helps to identify where one stronger principle might overcome a weaker one or where a compromise should be sought. Separates well-being, autonomy, and fairness. Communalism. One of the Meritonian principles of the science is communalism, that the results of research are public knowledge freely available to all, research to provide public knowledge freely available to all. But what about secret government research, secret commercial research? Who owns the information? However, the participants in research have a right to privacy. Alternatively, such research is private, owned by the funder of the research, either the government or commercial concern. The conflict between privacy, confidentiality, and the public access to knowledge creates an ethical arena. Who owns the information? Secrecy. Whistleblowing. Researchers are in privileged position. They may come across information about wrongdoing or danger to the public. The reporting of this information may go against any confidentiality agreement. The reporting of such information is likely to damage their career. The Public Disclosure Act 1998 protects certain classes of workers from the consequences of whistleblowing. Confidentiality Confidentiality of electronically stored participant information, appropriate selection and use of tools for analysis of the primary data, who has access to the data, data protection, universalism. There are no privileged sources of scientific knowledge, race, sex, politics, specialism, authority, but certain classes and ethnic groups are underrepresented in research. Disinteredness, science is done for its own sake. How impersonal is research in practice? Research is competitive not just in the search for funding but also for status. High achieving researchers tend to do highly ambitious. High achieving researchers tend to be highly ambitious. Personal feuds are rife in academia, for example, in dispute or over priority. Yes, there is a graph, the same academic institutions that are responsible for oversight of scientific integrity and human subject protection are enter financial relationship with the industries whose products which might directly impinge of these. Originality. Science is the discovery of the unknown. Plagiarism, publication of the same result in multiple journals, routine stamp collection survey. Sceptical is skeptical of given opinion, challenge accepted views. Research is social activity. Research is not just a method and a science and a system of organized knowledge. It is a social activity carried out by groups of competing, cooperating, communicating scientists. There are three dimensions of academic research: the community, meeting with authority, publication, controversy, theory, experiment, person, sincerity. So the community, that the contact with the person and the knowledge through the theory, controversy, publication, experiment, sincerity, authority. Participation of colleagues. A key consideration concerns the status rank class of not just subject but all participants, including colleagues. This will influence the ethical relationship, responsibility of the researcher. Not all people are equal. Ethical relationship with supervisor. The relationship between the student and the supervisor is unequal and hierarchical. The supervisor play many roles as advisor, promoter, boss, teacher, friend, principal, investigator, etc. The multiplicity of roles may lead to conflict. The relationship may be or may seem to be coercive, abusive. A student must feel free to make their own decision. Ethical supervision, non-coercive, nurtures the student confidence and skills. Permissive, does not use the student just as an technician or assistant, but allows the student to develop the project in new ways. Ethical relationship with colleagues. Effective and ethical relationship with colleagues will aid a student to make more rapid progress on their project. Now the publication, or how the world sees you, determine whether you get funding for further research or not, determine whether you get promoted or not. The negative data problem. The negative data, can negative results be important? Are they publishable? Would journals full of negative results sell if they are not published? Are they doomed to be repeated wastefully? How can positive results be validated without knowing about negative ones? Two type of authorship problem: gift authorship, ghost authorship. What is a gift one? Inclusion of author who didn't contribute significantly to the study. This might include a PhD supervisor. Hierarchy expectation favor colleagues increase publication. Ghost author, absence of authors. Professional writers should be acknowledged. Hierarchy of political, personal reasons. When to publish? Where? Yes, the place one, the time one. There is intense pressure to publish early and often for career progression, for getting new grants, for getting tenure, for establishing priority. Primacy is an area of research. Dispute over priority. Robert K. Merton has analyzed disputes about priority in cases of near simultaneous discovery, those ending in dispute. 92% in the 17th century, 72% in the 18th century ended in dispute, 59% by the later half of the 19th century, and 33% by the first half of the 20th century. The decline in contested claims for priority in research discoveries can be credited to the increasing acceptance of the publication of the papers in modern academic journals. Tactic 1: the maximum number of publication waste of resources and distorts publication output. In USA, UK universities up to early 1990 and still applies in Germany, India and China for their publication. How to maximize your publication unethically. This is the unethically way you can increase the publication number. अब publications जो हैं उनमें अगर unethically हम increase करना चाहते हैं तो इसमें salami slicing, breaking up work into large number of small papers, styling publishing sequence of substantially overlapping papers, double publishing. Scratch my back and I will scratch yours. Peer review is not always entirely independent. Many areas of research are small and highly competitive. Some senior scientists are intolerant of criticism and dangerous to across. Plagiarism. Plagiarism, that is basically dishonesty. The research may be excellent, but it wasn't done by the author of the paper. No point in trying to plagiarize published work. Plagiarism mostly involves unpublished theses, difficult to detect unless editor referee familiar with unpublished work is subject as well as published work. Sections seen as a default option now. Rejection. Yes, that is one of the very difficult point. Honestly, well, of course, you are going to be depressed if you keep comparing yourself with successful scientists. Yes, now the introduction to the research ethics. कि रिसर्च एथिक्स जो है जब हम इसको कोरिलेट करते हैं रिसर्च के साथ तो इसमें बहुत सारी बातें आ जाती हैं, बहुत सारे पॉइंट आ जाते हैं कि रिसर्च और एथिक्स का क्या ताल्लुक है। रिसर्च और एथिक्स का बहुत गहरा ताल्लुक है। Yes, they said I have made so many mistakes that I now think of my life as pure research. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.